It's the biggest morgue under one roof in the whole world. And I had a journalist friend who is a very talented film reviewer, and I hadn't seen Andre's movie, so I just go, what do you think about this guy Andre Ovredal? Is that how I say your last name? All right. And he was like, do the movie, it's amazing. And then I watched Troll Hunter and I loved it, and so it was a very kind of serendipitous moment. So I was very happy to get to work with Andre and to get to go to work every day with someone like Brian, who is just totally in control of his craft and what he's doing, and you know, he said earlier we play good tennis together, and we had a lot of fun together. And I think because we were both willing to just have a great time when we went to make these scenes, I think that made us a bit more relaxed, which ends up coming across on film as more natural or more believable. You know, sometimes when you work with certain actors that, you know, maybe they have, you know, a stick up their ass or something like that, it's harder for them to kind of get to some of the more relaxed acting, which is sort of what you need in something like this, because there's a lot of kind of forensic type scenes where you need that sense of ease.
Yeah. So could each of you talk about working with Jane Doe herself, how she was cast and then working with her on set?
I remember calling my casting director saying, okay, to discuss the part, because it's kind of a tricky, it was a part that was fair in casting in a way, because it was so crucial. And she, as I described her to her, she immediately said, oh, I know her. She's Irish. She lives next door to me. And she was literally the first one I met in an office, just talking about the part and talking about what it would, you know, she would have to do in a way. And she was just the right person. It was like never a doubt in my mind. I was talked into doing a whole round of actors, meeting a whole, like 20, 30 more actors, but it was like, the part was hers.
What was the audition like? The meeting.
I didn't do an audition, we just talked. You know, sat around the table and talked. But I did do some test photos of her from top angles and stuff like that to just see how she was, and it was just, yeah, it was very easy choice.
She's astonishing, really astonishing. I think both Emile and I feel the same way, because she, there she was. I mean, she's, as you could see, an incredibly beautiful girl, who I think sometimes models, doesn't she? She's a model at times. And, the first day you walk in and there she was, absolutely stark naked, lying on the slab, and you go, oh, I've got 4 weeks of this. So. Oh, 4 weeks, how's one going to cope? Even at my age. And, but interestingly enough, she just became this cadaver, this body. And she perfected this way of breathing, which was uncanny, because we'd both be working away, and we'd suddenly realize that she was there, but she hadn't breathed. She hadn't. But she was actually doing the shower breathing, which you can never see. And she really did it. And as Emile pointed out earlier, she very much kept, she was very much in her own world, which she would be as a corpse. But so there was a sort of distance in a very good way from her. So there was also a lot of respect for what she had to go through, because it was very, very difficult what she had to do. And,
yeah, so I mean, like, we pretty much never really talked to her. She didn't want to talk to anyone on the crew. Like, she would come in and just be totally focused on what she was doing there, and it really did create an effect where we didn't have any type of actual human relationship with her. She would just be on the slab, so we were really able to kind of view her in that way. We also had a guy who was always on set, this guy Stuart, who was actually a real medical examiner, who would constantly be giving tips and demented stories to everybody about his work, and traumatizing the grips, who were unlucky enough to overhear like
Yeah.
So the prosthetics on Jane Doe are also amazing. It's some of the best prosthetics work I've ever seen. So could you each also talk about that part of the production?
You should talk about it.
Makes sense, I guess. I mean, we made a mold that was based on her body that took weeks and weeks to prepare, and every piece of hair on that doll's body has been put in separately by hand. It took like weeks just for that process alone, and then the skin and finessing, and then making the interior and then cutting her open and then making the interior and all the everything, and it was
the doll maker's actually a really nice guy once you get to know him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not as scary as he sounds. No, no, it's a whole team, obviously. I'm the serious one here. So that's no, that, and of course on set we would mostly shoot with Olwen, but then we would use the prosthetic body for the certain shots where we needed it. And then we would go back in and add a layer of her, of Olwen's skin and face and everything on top digitally later. And also, like, there was a fire sequence, and then we used a black doll to isolate the colors of the flames in front of it. And then we took that black doll out and put Olwen back in, and that took weeks, and then we added digital flames and more flames. And
I've just seen it for the first time. I'd never seen it until tonight, so I was still kind of shaken by it. But what I thought was amazing in the fire sequence was that last little bits of flame around her face. I thought was incredible. That lovely sort of moment of just when the flames died out, there was little flames around her face. It was really eerie.
So did you ever get freaked out when you were cutting open the fake bodies?
Well, Emile is much more. I'm a wuss when it comes to that kind of thing. I really am.
It would be like me being like, Brian, watch this.
Yeah. Oh!
And then 2 days later, Emile, I can't stop thinking about that video you showed me.
That's right. Yeah, he made me watch these videos, and I found it very distressing. I mean, I'm very good at pretending. That's my job. I pretend, but please don't make it real.
It wasn't that I ended up regretting going to the morgue, but I went from never having seen a dead body in my whole life to seeing like 400 in one day, and seeing like 5 people being actively autopsied at once in Los Angeles at the biggest morgue in the world. Thank you, Craig Harvey. But it did kind of haunt me for since then. It's really disturbing. I
I found Stuart disturbing.
He was alive.
His stories, he was alive. And his eccentricity and the way he kind of treated the whole thing like it was some kind of, oh well, I'm just going to cut up another body.
I remember there was when on one of the autopsy tables there was this little Latino woman who had these bolt cutters that were like half of her size. And Craig Harvey looks at me and he goes, "See her over there?" And I go, "Yeah." And she's like cracking somebody's ribs open. And he's like, "She used to actually be the secretary upstairs. And she got really curious about what was going on downstairs. She took some classes and now here she is."
Specializing in bolt cutters.
Any questions from the audience? Anyone? Over here?
Hi, my name is Sid Smith. I'm inspired.